I have been silent for a very long time. I have stayed silent for so long, trying to stay mentally strong for so long. Every day, I tell myself, Camille, don't crash out. Camille, don't crash out. Don't crash out, Camille, don't crash out. Hold it. Hold it and keep going. But exhausted is not even the word. I'm so tired. I feel so abused that enough is enough. I've had enough. I've reached a point where I'm almost starting to feel empty in a way. None of you know the half, not even a quarter of what I've really been through. You could only imagine. But matter of fact, y'all don't even really know the story. And if it's one thing that life is always teaching me, is it does not pay to be a good person. People who are good in this world get treated the worst. People love criminals. People protect criminals. People who do bad things, lie, steal, keep secrets. That's who y'all love. That's who y'all show love to. And the person who is so humble, so selfless, so loving, so caring, wouldn't hurt a fly, and would always run to go save you, that is who y'all hate. Good people. Good people are the most hated person, the most ill-treated person on the planet. And I reach a point where a lot of days I feel like I don't want to live here no more, because it doesn't feel like it's worth it. I love myself though. You'll never catch me. You're never gonna catch no news saying that I did something to myself. Never. Never. But at the same time, some people make life like it's not worth living. If you gotta be here and put up with the shit that they do. Today is what's today? I can't even remember the date. But it's Monday, August 2025. Next month is September. Next month is gonna make it a year since my life completely changed. I don't even know if I should say my life changed for the worst or for the better. I don't even know. I just know that my life has never been the same. And at the end of the day, you can't even expect life to be the same as time goes on. It's always changing, but you know, sometimes certain stories, like, it makes the headlines, and afterwards, you know, everybody goes back to their normal life. And you don't really hear about the people again, you know what I mean? You could only wonder or imagine how they're coping or what they're going through, but you know, usually you never really hear about the people again. And I've actually done my best to, you know, I've given updates and stuff like that. And I've tried to keep my updates as positive as possible and not really talk about the actual things that happened, because the pain is gut-wrenching and I don't want to give that energy out. It pains me to have to share my pain with other people. I don't want to come and give bad news. I like to see the world with pink shades on, rose-colored glasses. I like to look out into the world and be like, everything is fine. And let me tell you something about me. I'm a very positive person. When I speak, I know when to be bold, when to be aggressive, when to be assertive. But at the same time, I'm a very, very positive person. And I just exude light and positive vibes. I don't trouble anybody. I don't give people trouble. For the most part, I'm quiet. I mind my business. You know? And so I don't like to put negative energy out there. I don't like to bring negativity out of me. I don't like it. It doesn't make me feel good inside. You know, it doesn't feel very beautiful to have to bring negativity to other people. And so I take full control of my emotions very well. I take control over my reactions and responses to things, because I have to live with the energy that I possess. So I don't like to respond to things on a whim or bring negative energy out, because now I feel like I'm making myself negative. I'm raising my cortisol levels. I'm raising my tensions, and I'm making myself feel bad inside. So I don't like to have to go, curse people out, tell people off, right? Because I like to stay calm. Being calm makes me feel good. I don't like to get in a rage. Rage is not good for me, But I've reached a point where my buttons are being pressed. About a year ago, Friday, September 13th, which everybody knows, it's a universal thing. 13 is like a bad luck number. 13, here in America, buildings don't have 13 floors. Elevators don't have the number 13 in them, because 13 is a bad luck. Now, that's an actual cultural thing here in America. Buildings are constructed, and the 13th floor is automatically called the 14th floor. They skip number 13. And in the elevators too, there is no 13 to press. You cannot go to the 13th floor. There is none. Friday the 13th is a day where people like to say that the devil is looking for souls. Those who believe that there is an actual devil or an actual negative spiritual energy that, has sovereign over the dark side of the earth. Friday, September 13th, I received a phone call from Damien's mom. I was sitting down with my baby. I was blow drying my hair, and not too long ago, I had spoken to Damien. I spoke to Damien around after 3. And his mother called me at after 4. And the first thing that she said to me when I answered the phone was, I have some bad news for you. When she said that she had bad news for me, I was confused at first. I know when I spoke to her a couple days or a week or two prior, she had told me that her mother wasn't doing so well. So I thought that she was calling me to give me bad news on her mom. But, you know, it was a FaceTime call. She was sitting down somewhere outside here in New York. And she says to me, you know, I got a phone call. Damien fell off the roof in Carriacou. And immediately I was like, are you sure? I was like, you know, are people just like saying, you know, I said, are you sure it's our Damien or another Damien? Like, you got confirmation that like it's our Damien? And she said, that's what his sister said. And she said his sister is in Carriacou. And so she, you know, she confirmed it. At first, it didn't really hit me, like, you know, when he fell off a roof and he's injured and stuff like that. In my mind, I was like, how you fell off the roof? Like, and again, I'm not thinking to myself that he broke something. I'm thinking like, how you fell off the roof. I'm not even thinking of how high a building could be. I was just like, nah. I said, find out. And I'm thinking, you know, find out some more information on that and then call me back, because I don't think that that's true. It's not until she says to me, no, you know, they have him at the health center. I'm like, what? She's like, you know, I don't really know what the situation is, but the Coast Guard has to bring him down to take him to the hospital. I was like, the hospital? Whoa. Like, so now I'm thinking, shit. You know, and not once did I think to myself that he could possibly be, you know, dead or dying or anything. I was just like, but how he fell off the roof? You know, and I was still calm. I was sitting there like, anywho. Then I thought to myself, his sister is down here and she didn't even tell me. When did she get here? Because when I left and went down to Grenada, she was still in America. And, you know, she didn't tell me she was coming down. And I said, and she said, and the mother said to me, she been in Carriacou since last week Wednesday. And I'm like, she been down here for a whole week and didn't say nothing. She, you know, passed through Grenada, didn't even call me to say, you know, let me check Camille and the baby or anything like that. I'm like, I didn't even know she was down here. Okay. So she says to me, you know, I don't have anybody down there that I could, you know, communicate with and stuff like that. You know, I don't have anybody in, like, when she said down there, she's talking about on the mainland in Grenada, because the family is in Carriacou. So she was like, I need you to go. The ambulance is going to be waiting on the carronage when the Coast Guard comes down with him. And I need you to go meet them to, you know, take the ambulance with him to the hospital. And the first thing I said to her, I said, you don't have to ask me. I'm going. Like, that's not even something you have to ask me. Come on, this is me. You don't got to ask me. Just tell me what's happening and I'm going. I said to her, because I've never experienced a situation like this before. So I said, how long does the Coast Guard take to come down? She said it's going to be about less than an hour. I had the mirror in front of me. I look at my hair and I'm like, shit. My hair is half wet. I look at Tessie and I'm like, all right, we got to get up and we got to move now. I said, how long ago did you? She said, I don't know if they're probably already on the water with him because they move fast. I said, okay. You know, she's like, I really don't even know what happened. I don't know, you know, the police, you know, I don't know if they're going to do an investigation. So when she says that, in my mind, I'm like, does she think somebody pushed him? Because I'm like, what's the need for an investigation? But anyway, after that, I didn't ask no more questions. I just knew that I need to move quickly. I get up immediately. You know, I get up, I tell her, well, let me call my aunt because I need somebody to hold the baby because she can't go to the hospital with me. So she says, okay, do what you have to do and then call me back. I call my cousin first before I call my aunt, actually, because I didn't want her to already be on her way to me to come do my hair and end up wasting bus money and stuff like that to come to me. And I'm calling her to cancel and tell her she can't do my hair anymore because I'm leaving the house. I called my cousin and I said to her, hey, listen, I can't do my, and she was supposed to come. She was coming to me for, I think, 5 o'clock or something like that. I said, we can't do my hair anymore today. I have to cancel because I just got off the phone with Damien's mother and she said that he fell off a roof in Carriacou. And my cousin was like, she's like, damn, like, she's like, you serious? Like, she said, you know what? Don't worry about it. You know, he's not going to die. He's going to be okay. That's the first thing she's like, you know, she's like, he's not going to die. You don't got to worry. He's not going to die. I said, okay. You know, that it kept me positive to hear somebody, you know, say that. So after I got off the phone with her, I called my aunt and I tell my aunt and she says to me, how you mean Damien could follow? How, what? You know, I said, I don't know. I just know that I'm getting dressed and I'm coming over there. She said, okay. I got dressed. I dressed the baby, made her, took her snacks, food, bottle, whatever the case is, Pampers, everything. I was still in my right level-headed mind to pack a proper diaper bag for her. And I left. Again, and I'm telling you, mental strength, some people don't understand when it comes to mental strength because you have another person who would have heard the news, lost it, not know themselves. But I remained myself, you know, turned off the lights, turned off the AC, you know. I like to turn off the gas when I'm leaving the house for a longer period of time, and I don't know, you know, I have paranoia about gas leaks and stuff like that. So I turned things off and, you know, properly secured the place, shut the windows, everything like that, you know, did all of that and left the house. I was not in a state of shock. All right, I'm gonna make that very clear. I was not in a state of shock. Maybe if it was somebody else, but with Damien, I was not in a state of shock. I was not shocked. As soon as I left, I got a bus right away. I live in Grand Anse. My aunt lives in Belmont. So I dropped the baby to my auntie in Belmont. And then I jumped back on the bus because the bus waited for me. As the bus is pulling up to the carriage and I see the ambulance and I see the flashing lights, that's when it really started to hit me that this is a situation. And I called my sister and I told my sister what happened, my twin sister. And she was like, oh my God. And I was like, yeah, so I'm going to see the situation. I said, my heart is starting to, you know, my chest is beating a little bit now that I actually see the ambulance, but hopefully he's fine. I get out the bus. I call his mother immediately to let her know that I arrived on the scene. As I'm walking along the carriage, I see the stretcher and I see his feet and I see that he has no shoes on. And when I keep getting closer and I see his body, he was laying down on the stretcher like with no clothes on. He just had on a vest and some shorts and his eyes were swollen closed and I thought he was dead. So my chest starts to beat even faster and my mouth gets really dry and I thought I was about to freeze up, but I had just enough moisture in my mouth to get out the words, I'm here, I see him. That's what I said to his mother. I said, I'm here, I see him. And my voice started to shake because I thought he was dead. He wasn't moving. There was a lot of blood all over his, you know, neck area and chest. But, and they had like this, you know, the foam around his neck. Then they took a blanket and they put the blanket over the stretcher And for a second, when you normally see, like in those movies, when somebody dies and they pull the blanket over the person's face, I thought they were about to do that, because that's what they do when somebody died. So when I see them putting the blanket over him, I said, Damien? And then he said, my neck. And I said, he's alive. And I still have his mother on the phone. And so she was like, okay. So she was like, she said, how is he looking? I said, well, he can't open his eyes. They're swollen shut. His face looks pretty banged up, but I said he has a thing around, they put a thing around his neck and there's a lot of blood everywhere. And she said, oh my God. And the waterworks started on the phone. And that was when I fought back my tears, because hearing her bawl out, oh my God, and start crying, I felt like, okay, I have to stay strong for her. This is her son. I have to stay strong for her. I can't break down and start crying too and then make her think that, everything is chaos over here. I said, I need to stay strong and let her know that, things are being handled, because she's not here. And that's her baby boy. At the end of the day, yeah, he's over 40 years old, but that is her baby boy. So I fought back my tears and I strengthened back up as the nurse turned to me. But she didn't turn to me necessarily. She just said, what's his name and how old is he? As I opened my mouth to answer, his friend was with him, and he just said, look, the wife, she come, look, the wife come, wifey come. And he had a book bag in his hand, and he was shoving the book bag at me like he wanted me to take it. And I was like, what is that? And he was like, it's some clothes or something like that. I guess because he knew that they were going to the hospital, he packed a bag for Damien. And he was like, take it, you have to go with him. I said to him, you were with him when he fell? He said, yeah. I said, you saw what happened? He said, yeah. I said, okay, so you can ride the ambulance with him. I didn't want to ride the ambulance. Once I saw him in that way, I honestly felt like I wasn't going to be mentally strong enough to ride in the ambulance with him. I don't, seeing him in that state, and then I think I would have broken down in the ambulance. So I didn't want to go, And so I still had the mother on the phone. And so she heard when I was like, I was like, no, she said, no, you have to go with him. Go. And she said, they cannot tell you, you cannot go with him. Go with him. Because he saw what happened, he could answer their questions. I wasn't there. I cannot answer the questions of what happened. So I said, you know what? Let me find out how many people could ride in the ambulance with him. So I asked the EMT. It was a man. I said, how many people could ride in the ambulance with him? They said, only one. I said, okay, all right. So I would meet you guys there. You go ahead. The guy said, no, go. He's going to want you. He would want you. He wants you to ride with him. You is his wife. He's going to want you. I said, just go. And then the nurse said, make up your mind who go in and who think, because we don't have time to waste here. We have to go with the patient. And so I was standing up. I had my foot up on the entrance to the ambulance. And so I came down, and I said to his mother, I said, I'm gonna meet them there. I'm right behind. I said, I'm right behind you guys. And so the guy went into the ambulance with him, and they closed the doors and they took off with him. At this moment, I just tell myself to breathe, and I go to call a hail up, and I tell his mom, I'm getting a cab. I'm going to call you back, because I wasn't going to stand up and wait for bus. I called a hail up. If you don't know what a hail up is equivalent to Uber. That is what we have in Grenada. It's called hail up. So when I went in the app to call the hail up, the vehicle was so far, it was like all the way up by like Mount Cinnamon side. And I was like, you know what, I'm not going to wait for that. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to walk up to the hospital. And I hadn't been to that hospital in so long. I was like, where the hospital? Like, by then, my head started to spin now. And I said, where the hospital there again? I stood up there for about 5 minutes. Just the image just keep playing in my head of him, and they just rode off with him, and I'm having anxiety and I'm paranoid, and my mind can't even really remember where the damn hospital is. But I said, you know what? Just walk. Your feet will take you there. As you walk, your feet are gonna remember for you. And so I start to walk. I needed the walk. I needed the walk. I felt like I punked out of riding the ambulance with him. I was being a punk. I was. I've never been in a situation like that before, where I had to respond to any family member to an injury and have to see the person like that. I punked out. And I did not ride the ambulance with him. I just felt like I couldn't. I needed the walk. The walk helped me to breathe, calm down. I needed the fresh air because I was hyperventilating. I probably would have passed out in the ambulance. I needed the walk. So by the time I reached up to the hospital now, I had calmed down. I was more in a frozen kind of state. When I reached up there, I already had him inside, already doing CAT scan and x-ray and those things. And so Kat started to fill me in on what it was that they were doing with him. I said, okay, good. I got back on the phone with his mom, and the mother said to me, well, what are they doing with him now? I said, well, they have him inside. She's like, go inside and see what they're doing and stuff like that. And I said, they're doing their job. I don't really want to, interfere. They took him in, and, he's in the x-ray. He's doing the x-ray. So they said nobody cannot come inside there. And she's like, they cannot tell you that you cannot go inside of there. You are his wife. Go and tell them you are his wife. They cannot tell you cannot go inside there. And I said, okay, well, when the nurse comes back out, I would see what's going on. She said, let me talk to Kat. I gave him my phone. They had a conversation. And then he gave me back the phone. And she said to me, I need you to be strong. I said, yeah, I know. I was really quiet on the phone too. I said, yeah, I know. Because I was playing it off like it's not that serious. Like, he's going to be fine. Maybe he broke an arm or something, but, So she was like, everything is, and the words that pierced me, I would never forget what she said. She said, everything is on you now. Anything that they have to do, whatever decision you have to make whatever decision you have to make. She said, you can call me. She said, whatever they're telling you or explaining to you, you could call me and let me know. She said, with this, she can't go to sleep. And I think she said she couldn't be by herself. She had to go by her sister because, sometimes when you get news like that, you can't be by yourself. You need to be around people for support. So she basically let me to know that, she's going to stay by the phone for the rest of the night. And if I have to call her to, not really consult, but, speak with her on anything. But she said to me, everything is on you now. Make whatever decision you have to make. If they have to do surgery or anything like that, is you that have to sign it because you are his wife. And in my mind, I said, I'm listening to her, and I said, why is this woman giving me this responsibility? It's not that I don't want the responsibility, but I was like, as his mom, I just felt like it was all her every right to feel like she should be the one to make decisions for her son. At the same time, I just had a baby. I was 8 months postpartum. And the way I looked at it, I don't care how big my daughter gets, who she ends up going to spend the rest of her life with. I still don't want to put my life, the life of my daughter, in nobody else's hands. I want to be the one to make the decision on my daughter's deathbed. That's just me, you know. So I felt the weight, but I did not decline. Because again, I said I wanted to stay strong for her. And if this is what his mother's wish is, then I will do that. Because from a mother to another mother, if that's what she wants, then I will do that. And let me tell you, I'm coming from a previous relationship I had. I was with a Jamaican guy for 5 years who had a very weird relationship with his mother, to where his mother felt like he was her man. And I'm so that was my previous experience with a past mother-in-law, that I know that woman would have pushed her way in front of me and be like, I don't care who you is. I don't care if you have a child for him. I don't care. That mother would have definitely hands down. You understand? Because she acted as though her son was her man. She had no respect for me. And hands down, I know she would not have let any wife or any woman in her son's life make any decisions for him. That Jamaican lady, she So this is a different situation now, where his mother put everything in my hands. And when she said that, she said, everything is on you now to make whatever decision you have to make. Those words pierced me, but it grounded me, it humbled me. And I said to myself, you know, put your big girl panties on and take up your responsibility, because this is real life. It's happening whether you think you're dreaming or not. It's happening. And if that nurse comes back out of that door and tells you that they lost him, or tells you that they need to bring him into an emergency surgery or whatever, you need to not fall apart and stay level-headed in order to make the right decisions for him. So she asked me, she was like, you know, when they come out, you know, because you didn't see them as yet, you know, let them know that they have to give you the papers for you to sign and stuff like that. She asked me where is his brother. He has a half brother in Carriacou. That brother is not her child. And I told her I don't see him. And then the friend said, oh, his brother is coming down with a speedboat or whatever the case is. And so he's on his way from Carriacou. And she said to me, do what you have to do, but please do not make that brother come and step in and get in your way and make decisions for Damien. You understand? And I said, okay. She said, you are the next of kin, and it's you to make decision for him. She said, do not let him come and get in your way and take away that from you. I said, okay. And I didn't ask any questions. I didn't pry into family business. I know that is his brother. But and again, that is not her child, and this is her son. And as his mother, she said straight up, I do not want that boy making decisions for my son. And she said to me, you know, stand firm on that. And I told her she had my word. Okay, but I was very quiet and very short in my responses because I was meditating on everything as she was talking to me. So I didn't really talk much and question her or anything. Everything she said to me, I said, yes, okay, yes, I will. Yes, okay, I will. And then we got off the phone. Shortly after, just within a few minutes, she called me back and she said, I have another family member that's a nurse practitioner. So I am going to send her to meet you so that you guys, because she has the experience in healthcare, she could advise you to, on what to do. If they come and say, they need to do this and that or whatever, she could advise you on what decision to make. So, you'll have her for support. And she told me the woman's name and stuff like that. And she's his aunt and godmother and stuff like that. So I said, okay. So I knew that, that was family, that was close family, a godmother, aunt, and she's a nurse practitioner and she's to be trusted. And I don't work in healthcare, you understand? So that was a great support that was the best decision that she could have made to help me, because I could, anything could have happened where I could have frozen up and not make the best decision right away and feeling like I had no support, because again, his mother is not in the country she's not physically here to stand up with me and support me and for us to make the decisions for him together. So shortly after that, the woman came, and very, very lovely lady. I love that lady. I'm so grateful and so happy to God that I've met this woman and she came in my path, because she was the greatest and the best support that I could have ever asked for. And if I have anybody else to thank really and truly to help me save Damien's life, it was this lady. Oh my God, she was sent from heaven. So when she came now, everything that his mother said, we did exactly that. They brought Damien onto the ward and said, he could have a few visitors, but not for too long, because it was already going on midnight and, visitation really and truly was over. But because it was a situation that, the timing that it happened, they said, you can come in and see him for 5 minutes and then, we have to ask you to leave and you can come back and visit him in the morning. When I went onto the ward to see him, of course, the first thing they said, no cell phones, put your phone away, no pictures, no videos, nothing. And I'm like, well, of course, because I don't even want this memory. When I went, his head and his face was more swollen than how I saw him on the carnage. He went from bad to worse in a matter of hours because of all the internal bleeding that was going on. And he was vomiting up blood. So, of course, I stepped to him. He cannot open his eyes to see me because they were swollen shut. And I could barely open my mouth to talk to him because just seeing him like that, I got dry tongue. But I said, I don't really have much to say, but I know that you're strong. So you're going to be okay. And I look at him, I look at his body, the way he's laying there, and I say, well, and they had took out the thing on his neck, so it's like, I guess he didn't need it. And they tried to put oxygen on him, but then he vomit up inside the oxygen thing. And when he sit up to vomit, everything's like splash out everywhere, and I jump back so that the vomit doesn't, splash on me. Because the vomit was full of blood. And I said, anyways, I don't even know if you could hear me, or I know you can't see me, but so I left Tess in Belmont, and time going, I'm gonna go back and get the child and bring her home, and I said, I'll give her a kiss for you, and you gonna be all right. He didn't answer, and I just slowly backed away and turned around and I walked out the door. When I walked out the door, his brother had just arrived, and the half brother was standing in the hallway there. I said hello to him, but I spoke to him briefly because I said that, time going, I have to go and pick up the baby. Everything was already left in order, so I did not think to myself that he was going to go and I didn't ask the mother any questions really about him to really know, so I left the hospital, and I guess maybe that was when he got the opportunity to be able to go and interfere in ways that the mother had assumed that he would.